These are the headlines we're following at this hour. A massive blast struck a hospital in central Gaza, killing some 500. Hamas blames an Israeli airstrike, while Israel blames rockets far from within Gaza. Tensions rise as U.S. President Joe Biden is heading to Israel in solidarity with the country while seeking to contain a wider regional conflict and ease the humanitarian crisis. The U.S. has announced new export controls on AI chips to China, strengthening its earlier restrictions to be extended to chips with fewer capabilities and to more chip equipment. It also ties its notification policy for chip makers. South Korea's auto exports from January to September this year hit a record high for that period on the back of strong sales of eco-friendly cars in North America and the EU. Good afternoon. We start with rising tensions in Gaza, where a massive blast struck a hospital, killing at least 500 patients and civilians. Hamas blames Israel, while the Israeli military points the finger at Palestinian Islamic Jihad. Ishihu has the latest.
A massive blast struck Al-Aliyah Rabi Baptist Hospital in the center of Gaza City on Tuesday local time. A Palestinian health ministry official said at least 500 people were killed in the blast. Hamas said that an Israeli airstrike hit the hospital, while the Israeli Defense Forces said that misfired rockets by Palestinian Islamic Jihad militants were to blame. The group has denied the accusation. Hundreds of patients and civilians were reportedly seeking shelter at the hospital. Survivors of the strike were transferred to another hospital 1.5 kilometers away. The World Health Organization condemned the attack.
WHO strongly condemns the attack on Al-Ahli Arab Hospital in the north of the Gaza Strip. The hospital was operational with patients, healthcare givers, and internally displaced people sheltering there.
The UN agency chief Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus on social media also called for the immediate protection of civilians and healthcare. The United Nations Relief and Works Agency for Palestine refugees in the Near East also said at least 6 people have been killed in an Israeli airstrike that hit a school in Gaza run by the agency. Reuters meanwhile reported that an Israeli airstrike killed the Hamas armed commander Ayman Nofal in charge of the central Gaza area. Ishihu, Arirang News.
The hospital blast in Gaza has changed U.S. President Joe Biden's trip to Israel. The president will arrive in the country on Wednesday as planned, seeking to contain a wider regional conflict and humanitarian crisis. But his trip to Jordan that was supposed to follow after has been called off. U.S. President Joe Biden is heading to Israel on Wednesday. That is according to U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken following his more than 7-hour-long meeting in Tel Aviv with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and his board cabinet.
He's coming here at a critical moment for Israel, for the region, and for the world. And he's coming here to do the following. First, the President will reaffirm the United States' solidarity with Israel and our ironclad commitment to its security.
Biden's visit comes as fears are growing that the latest flare-up in the Israel-Hamas war could spill into other countries in the region. Tensions have been escalating in the Middle East, with Israel exchanging fire with Iran-backed Lebanese militant group Hezbollah near its northern border with Lebanon. Iran has issued warnings against Israel's operations in Gaza.
Leaders of the resistance will not allow the Zionist regime to do whatever it wants in Gaza and then go after other resistance groups after it's done with Gaza. Therefore, any preemptive action is possible in the coming hours.
With world leaders such as UK Prime Minister Rishi Sunak and Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan expressing the importance of avoiding further regional escalation, experts predict President Biden will also use his visit to avert the war's expansion. Addressing the dire humanitarian situation in Gaza is also on Biden's agenda, where civilians are facing severe shortages of water, electricity, and fuel.
The President will hear from Israel how it will conduct its operations in a way that minimizes civilian casualties and enables humanitarian assistance to flow to civilians in Gaza in a way that does not benefit Hamas.
Biden will also continue his efforts to secure the release of at least 199 hostages held by Hamas. The militant group on Monday released a video showing a 21-year-old Israeli hostage who appeared to be suffering from an arm injury. This marks the first time that Hamas has made public a video of a hostage held in Gaza. Weapons and tactics used by Hamas appear to be similar to those pursued by North Korea. That is according to Seoul's Joint Chiefs of Staff, who is looking into any possible links between the two. Our defense correspondent Choi Min-jung reports.
South Korea's military authorities have reason to believe that the weapons and tactics used by the Palestinian militant group Hamas are linked to North Korea. Speaking to reporters on Tuesday, an official from the Joint Chiefs of Staff noted that Hamas has been spotted using a North Korean-produced F-7 rocket. South Korea's military officials said that the F-7 is the name North Korea uses when exporting its RPG-7 rockets overseas. On top of that, North Korea's 122mm multiple rocket launchers have recently been discovered near Israel. The military is also weighing the possibility that North Korea passed on its paragliding tactics to Hamas. Around 260 people lost their lives when Hamas militants paraglided down into a music festival in Israel. And a similar tactic was used by North Korea in 2016 when the regime's special forces demonstrated a surprise attack on a model blue house. The JCS also pointed out that Hamas's tactics involving mass rocket attacks and early morning attacks during a holiday are similar to what it would assess North Korea's tactics would be. This being said, the military says there is a high chance that North Korea would use these tactics to attack South Korea.
Our military is analyzing and evaluating the weapons and tactics used by Hamas. In addition, we are closely monitoring signs from North Korea using joint Seoul-Washington surveillance and reconnaissance assets. Our military maintains a thorough readiness posture against North Korean provocations.
The JCS also assesses that Israel's Iron Dome defense system was effective to some extent, given that 700 out of the 900 rockets fired toward the target area by Hamas were shot down. Choi Min-jung, Arirang News.
South Korea, the U.S., and Japan's air forces will likely hold their first ever joint air drills in the skies over the Korean peninsula this weekend. Although unconfirmed by the Defense Ministry, a military source reportedly said Wednesday that the training will involve the U.S. B-52 strategic bomber, which is currently in South Korea, escorted by fighter jets from the three nations. This will be the first time for the three countries to conduct air drills together. The Defense Ministry says South Korea, the U.S., and Japan are working to expand three-way exercises to strengthen cooperation against North Korea's nuclear and missile threats, as agreed during the Camp David summit. Seoul's foreign ministry expressed deep regret and disappointment over Japan's politicians' recent visits and offerings to the controversial Yasukuni War Shrine. The ministry spokesperson on Wednesday said that the leaders of Japan should face up to history and show sincere remorse for the past as to contribute to the progress in bilateral relations. According to Japanese media outlets, some 80 cross-party lawmakers paid respects at the shrine on Wednesday, following Prime Minister Fumio Kishida's ritual offerings sent the day before. The controversial shrine in Tokyo honors Japan's war dead, including 14 Class A war criminals. President Yoon emphasized the importance of public safety, saying that crimes targeting the vulnerable, such as sexual assault, child abuse, domestic violence, and stalking, are not tolerable. This came as he attended the National Police Day ceremony on Wednesday to celebrate the 78th anniversary of the founding of the South Korean Police Agency on Saturday. President Yoon also pledged full support for bolstering police capabilities, including with the distribution of new equipment, such as knife-proof body armor and low-risk handguns. According to the top office, 31 representatives from other nations' police agencies, as well as international organizations' police departments, attended the anniversary event. South Korea's auto exports from January to September this year hit a record high for that period on the back of strong sales of eco-friendly cars in North America and the EU. Our Park Gon-woo has more.
South Korea's auto exports hit new highs in the January to September period this year, reaching $52.1 billion on the back of record-high eco-friendly car exports to North America and the EU. According to the Industry Ministry on Wednesday, in the first 9 months of 2023, some $18 billion worth of green automobiles were exported, exceeding the total for 2022, which amounted to $16.1 billion. And with total car exports rising on year for 15 consecutive months in September, an Industry Ministry official said an even brighter future for outbound shipments is expected. And with this year's figure from January to September surpassing the $38.4 billion recorded for the same period in 2022, the official added the total value of exports for 2023 is also likely to pass last year's total of $54.1 billion. Production in September dipped slightly on year due to partial strikes within the industry, but has hovered above 300,000 units for 13 consecutive months. The Industry Ministry expects production to hit at least 400,000 vehicles by the end of 2023 if the trend continues, a figure not seen since 2018. On the domestic front, sales of new cars decreased 4.7% on year in September. Sales of eco-friendly cars increased around 2% from the year before. However, EV sales dropped 34% in September, something the Environment Ministry said was due to an announcement on expanded subsidies, which was set for the 25th of that month. Park Gon-woo, Arirang News.
The U.S. has announced new export controls on AI chips to China, strengthening its earlier restrictions to be extended to chips with fewer capabilities and to more chip equipment. It also ties its notification policy for chip makers. Lee Seung-jae has the details.
The U.S. Department of Commerce on Tuesday announced a set of rules to update and strengthen its restrictions on the export of advanced computing semiconductors to China. The Commerce Department's Bureau of Industry and Security released an update to rules for strengthening export controls after guidelines were published a year ago to restrict China from purchasing and manufacturing high-end chips deemed critical for military advantage. Among the updated rules are notification requirements for the export of certain chips with performance just below the restricted threshold. It also includes new rules to prevent companies from China and other countries of concern from securing controlled chips through their foreign subsidiaries. According to Commerce Secretary Gina Raimondo, the updates on the measures are set up to increase the effectiveness of U.S. controls and further shut off pathways to evade restrictions. She added that the controls remain Washington's clear focus on military applications and confront the threats to its national security posed by the Chinese government's military-civil fusion strategy. Meanwhile, the Commerce Department also added 13 Chinese companies to its entity list, a list of firms considered to be involved in activities contrary to U.S. national security and foreign policy interests. Tuesday's release noted that foundries producing chips for listed firms will need a Bureau of Industry and Security license before the foundries may send such chips to these entities or parties acting on behalf of these entities. The latest announcement comes after the department issued a rule last week updating general authorizations for South Korean chipmakers, Samsung Electronics and SK Hynix to continue supplying their China-based plants with certain U.S. semiconductor manufacturing equipment. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
As South Korea's role in the world continues to grow in its alliance with the U.S. and as a global pivotal state, the country's values are reinforcing democratic values in the world, according to Victor Cha, a former U.S. official on Asian affairs and an eminent expert on Korean Peninsula affairs. Our presidential office correspondent Oh Soo-young sat down with him.
South Korea is now an equal partner of the United States, with the potential to join the Group of 7 nations to cooperate on mounting global security threats and challenges. That's according to Victor Cha, a former US National Security Council Director on Asian Affairs, speaking to Arirang News in Seoul. Amid reports of North Korea increasing weapons exchanges with Moscow, Cha voiced concern that Pyongyang's emboldened posture could make it harder to deter the regime's missile and nuclear ambitions.
The North Koreans were able to do quite well at gaining all the parts it needed for their ICBM program despite very harsh sanctions. So I worry about, especially if Russia facilitates it, I worry that the North Koreans will be able to get away with a lot.
He underscored the need for stronger deterrence measures by Seoul, Washington and Tokyo based on their trilateral Camp David agreements to ramp up three-way military measures to deter Pyongyang and mechanisms to jointly address common challenges across the Indo-Pacific region.
Yeah, I mean, South Korea, I think, is an equal partner. It used to be the case that the United States was sort of the senior ally and Japan and Korea were the junior partners. I don't think that's the case anymore. I think it all starts with US, Japan, Korea. If that relationship is strong, then I think the United States feels like it's on solid footing, whether it's managing the rise of China or whether it's seeking broader regional architectures in Asia. The US, Japan, Korea relationship is core. It's core to that, based on common security interests, but common values, common norms, these sorts of things.
In this push for freedom, human rights and a rules-based global order, President Yoon last year became the first Korean leader to attend the G7 meeting as a guest nation and was invited again to the Hiroshima summit in May. Cha believes the group of advanced democracies could become a G8 to include South Korea.
Yeah, I think so. Right now, the UN Security Council is not really functional because of China and Russia, which means the United States and others need to seek out a new venue. But I do think, we're at a critical point right now in terms of being able to pull together three allies to move forward to shape the environment in which China will rise, and to work on things like supply chain, countering disinformation, these sorts of things.
With disinformation by state actors shaping biased views on global affairs, Cha also touched upon the role of media outlets in democracies to promote unbiased, accurate content.
Groups like Arirang, Yoon, others that are sort of news-based, not with a lot of editorializing, if they make themselves available to these countries that are targets of Chinese disinformation, they can dramatically change the, I don't want to say alignment, the color, if you will, of the countries. They would no longer have to listen to Chinese media and populate the media platforms with Chinese content.
Having highlighted Seoul's democratic coming of age and growing soft power in his book co-authored by Ramon Pacheco Pardo, Cha noted how Seoul is taking initiative on areas like global development, health, supply chains and nuclear energy. In its quest to become a global pivotal state, Cha said South Korea has a lot to offer beyond its interests to benefit the world. Oh Soo-young, Arirang News.
Let's take a look at what's going on in the world now. In Ukraine, President Volodymyr Zelensky has said that the country has used US-supplied long-range missiles for the first time amid its ongoing war with Russia. Speaking on Tuesday evening, Zelensky said that the Army Tactical Missile System, or ATACMS missiles used, had been effective and proven themselves. He did not specify when the missiles were deployed, but there are reports that they were used to destroy 9 helicopters at Russian bases in East Ukraine, and that dozens of Russian troops were killed or injured. The ATACMS were delivered to Ukraine in secret, with their maximum range reduced from 300 to 160 kilometers amid US concerns about raising tensions with Russia. The missiles sent to Ukraine also carry cluster munitions instead of a single explosive charge. In the Belgian capital of Brussels, the gunman who killed 2 Swedish citizens and injured another on Monday has been shot dead. Described by local media as a 45-year-old Tunisian man named Abdesalem, the shooter was killed on Tuesday morning local time after being confronted by authorities in a cafe. Police say they found a weapon on him and a bag of clothes. They added that the attack may be linked to the Israel-Hamas conflict. The gunman's death comes hours after he fatally shot 2 Swedish citizens and later admitted to the killings in a video posted to social media. Monday's shooting came ahead of a football match between Belgium and Sweden. The Euro 2024 qualifying match was abandoned at halftime over security concerns. In a major setback to the rights of same-sex couples, India's Supreme Court on Tuesday refused to legalize same-sex marriages. The decision comes after the Supreme Court heard 21 arguments on the case between April and May this year. The top court instead said that the decision lies with India's parliament and that the court can only interpret the law and not make it. The justices instead voiced support for a government proposal to create a panel to review granting rights and benefits to same-sex couples. The court added that same-sex couples should be provided legal protections from the state and that denying them benefits and services given to heterosexual couples violates their fundamental rights. And finally, the Amazon River has fallen to its lowest level in over 120 years, amid a severe drought. As of Monday, levels at the Brazilian port of Manaus were recorded at 13.59 meters, compared to 17.6 meters 1 year ago. It's the lowest level since records began in 1902. Tributaries to the Amazon River have also dried up, leaving boats stranded and cutting off food and water supplies to remote villages. Meanwhile, high water temperatures are suspected of being behind the deaths of more than 100 endangered river dolphins. The drought follows months without rain and higher than normal temperatures that are being blamed on this year's El Niño climate phenomenon. Matthew Ashley, Arirang News.
Good afternoon. Autumn colors arrived behind schedule on Bukhansan Mountain yesterday, which came 2 days later than usual. We had another chilly night, helping autumn colors to expand. Single-digit morning temperatures to start out the day in Seoul, but highs are rising fast to the 20s this afternoon. And it's another day with big temperature swings. Gaps could be nearly 20 degrees Celsius in some parts of the country. So please do dress accordingly for the weather conditions today. Seoul goes up to 21, Busan topping out at 24 degrees Celsius this afternoon under plenty of autumn sunshine during the day. Then central regions will see more clouds joining in as the day goes on. Then rain is in the forecast in the capital and west of Gangwon-do province tomorrow from dawn, spreading nationwide Thursday. And that rain could continue into Friday morning. And rain will bring a big chill to the country this weekend. So please plan accordingly and dress warmly for autumn activities you may want to enjoy this weekend. That's Korea for you, and here's a look at the international weather conditions.
In the first hostage video released by Hamas is a 21-year-old French-Israeli woman, Mia Shem, who disappeared from the music festival site where Hamas attacked. The 60-second video begins with Shem receiving medical treatment for her wounded arm. Then she speaks to the camera saying that she is being taken care of and that she got an operation at hospital. It ends with her plea to return to home. This is the first footage of any of some 200 hostages. Israel and the U.S. accused Hamas of trying to portray itself as a humane organization, calling it propaganda, in line with an earlier video of Hamas with children. The video, which is analyzed to have been filmed at least 6 days ago, is also seen as an attempt to pressure Israel, being released with Israel's ground offensive looming. That is all for today. Thanks for watching.